Hey everyone, I'm Liag, and this is how I made Can You Take It? So I got inspired for this song because one day I was sitting and I was thinking about how, earlier in this year I graduated from university. I got a music degree. I was staring at this piece of paper that said I had a degree, a bachelor's in music, yet there's no way in hell I'm going to be able to make a living off it anytime soon, which is kind of a little ridiculous if you ask me. And so I thought, wow, well, am I ever going to make it? And so from there, I realized that I wanted to turn the song into what it was, really. I guess student loans did one good thing. So usually with my songs, I like to start off with the drums, but this time I actually wanted to start with the melody. So I wrote this little piano part. This was the first thing that I have of the song. Originally, it had no tempo change in it. And obviously that's very recognizably the start of the song, but later on in the track I decided I wanted to layer it with a music box because that would add a spooky sort of sound, and that melody was already very eerie, and I don't even know what inspired that. I just made that out of nowhere, and that sounds like this. You combine that with the piano, you get the intro to the song. And then obviously there's the Tato vocals, which is literally just, at the time, I may have had a less than legitimately obtained copy of Kasani Tato for Synth V.
What the fuck do you mean you didn't pay for me, June?
I have a legally obtained copy now, but I had to screen record it to get the audio when this song came out, and I think that's really funny. And that honestly, lyrically, that was kind of one of the first things that I wrote. I didn't even know what the rest of the song was going to be when I made that. I just kind of did that. There's a couple layers here, this ARP is all throughout the song. Well, not all throughout the song, but it's throughout it quite a bit. It's one of the first things that you hear after that little intro section. And I really like this specific lead. Something about it just sounds really nice. It's just really nice. And so I decided to layer it with that chord progression that I'd written. As you can see, I did a lot of side chaining to the drums, because obviously there are drums that come in later on, and I wanted it to not get in the way of those, I guess. So then, one of the other layers I have is this little, lower version of the synth. It's mainly just there for some effect, I guess, and then it's got a redux on it as well, which is basically lowering the quality of that sound, and it kind of gives it its own unique sound, in my opinion. There's also this respace. Just another Serum preset. I use Serum a lot, that's my main synth. It's kind of the one I grew up using, I guess. And then that's layered with a hip-hop sub-bass, which just adds in that lower layer of bass. Then, of course, the bass changes when it gets into the verse, into a much more gritty bass, and that's a Tracy Breaks Splice Serum preset. It's really, really good. I like it a lot. I've used it in so many things. Tracy Breaks is a really good sound designer, and I will stand by that forever. And then that goes alternating octaves, so it gives it really a bouncy feel, I guess, a dancey feel, which is something that I wanted to do in this song specifically because it juxtaposes just how, I guess, down the rest of the song is lyrically, and how dark it is melodically. So you have these layers as well. Just some synth stabs. And these all have kilohertz transgate on it. So without it, that would be like... And with it, it's... This is just a sound that I designed myself. A whole bunch of serum distortion on it. Then there's this riser thing. And then this trick with operator where it's literally just like a sine wave and then you arpeggiate it and then have it pitch bend down. It's something that I picked up from one of the underscore streams where she broke down wall socket, but it's just a really good impact sound. Obviously, after that first chorus, you have some like melody changes, and I don't know, I really like what I did here. This is like really, it's just like a heart-wrenching melody. It feels very much something that you would hear in like The Living Tombstone 5 Nights at Freddy's track. Not sure which one, but it sounds like it would fit in there. And that's kind of what I was going for with the writing of it. If you don't know, I was listening to a lot of TLT this year because they released a really, really good album. So that was definitely a huge inspiration for how this and a lot of the deluxe album has turned out so far. There's nothing else really melodically that happens throughout the album the song that's particularly interesting. I mean, everything just pretty much takes on that like melody from the second verse, which is obviously the KITTYDOG verse. Stares back at you. Although I do add in these, like, I wouldn't call them pads, but they're like synths of some kind. Like, I really like how these ended up sounding. Like, it's very staccato. And it's like almost gross sounding, and you have these like trumpets in the choruses as well. And these trumpets actually ended up being my favorite part of the song at one point. They just sound so good here. Like, if I play this soloed, I did some manipulation with like turning the layer on and off, and it sounds like this. Just the way that that chops up is so awesome. Then, like, towards the second half of that last chorus, the Can You Take It part of that chorus, you end up getting this synth that is the exact same synth that Skrillex used in Scary Monsters and Nice Sprites. Like, that plays a da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da melody. It's that synth, and I recontextualized it into this song. And then there's this bass growl, which is a Tracy Breaks Serum preset. Once again, but it's really hard to get in key. So I ended up having to layer it with a hip-hop sub bass in the second half. Because it starts off as kind of just like a top layer to everything. And then it kind of becomes like the main bass towards the end. So altogether, all those melodic and bass layers sound a little something like this. So yeah, that's it for all the melodic elements. Now let's move on to the drums. Now, drums either make or break a track for me. Every time I have an issue with a track that I've made, it's always the drums, but every time I love a track I've made, it's always the drums. So this is one of those times where I think I did a really good job with them, and I really like how it all turned out. So the first drums that you hear in the song is this little build-up that I made myself. It's just a bunch of claps and snares layered and a, like, stomp kick. But it's not really, like, overpowering, I guess. And that comes back later. Now, the main drums of the song are interesting. There's only 3 of them. This is the kick from Back to Sleep by Tracy Breaks. Again, Tracy Breaks is a great sound designer. This is a clap from Vice Heart by Tracy Breaks. And this is just a random trap hat that I found that I then put an echo on. So the drums in the verse sound like this. And then the chorus, you get a different pattern. And then again, faster and then slower and then faster and then even faster, but also slower. Now that right there is what we call the Jane Remover Revenge Seekers influence. So basically, I got super inspired by Revenge Seekers by Jane Remover, which was another really good album and reminds me of a phone plan. Jane Remover phone plan will catch on. Anyway, basically you can hear a lot of that on the deluxe album too. You can also hear it in Rush quite a bit. That song's very inspired by that album. And it's layered with just the other clap. Okay, quick sidebar about effects. So you have these crashes. You have the tag that says June. Twice. And you have this stream. And basically all together, that instrumental sounds like this. Yes, that's the instrumental. Now I guess that leaves us with the lyrics. Lyrically, this track, again, very inspired from the feeling of not being able to make it because of the state of the music industry for independent artists right now. You kind of can't make a living off it unless you have, like, well over 100k active listeners. It's ridiculous. But, this song uses my standard vocal mix. You have a noise gate, you have some pitch correction, quite heavy on this track because it's the stylistic choice, some compression, you have an EQ that's basically cutting out all of the, like, muddy low end, and then cutting or like pushing down a little bit of the low mids, and then everything else is, like, fine. You have fresh air set to 24 and 18. Slate Digital sent me a fresh air in the, like, use guide in, like, 2022 when I first started using it, and it had this preset in it, and I've been using it ever since. I'm not gonna lie. OTT at a reasonable 34%. A de-esser just to get rid of that, like, sibilance. There's not a de-esser on the microphone in this recording, like this video, so you can probably hear that there's, like, quite a sound. And then a LA2A simulator, a bit of distortion using Ableton's stock raw, a copy of the EQ from before just so it, like, cuts out any of the lower frequencies that I don't want after the distortion, and then reverb, delay, and another EQ just to make sure that the reverb and delay don't get any sort of, like, effects that I don't like on them.
Can you take it? Can you take it? Can you take it all away from me? Will I make it? Will I make it? Will my work be worth anything? It's all out of my control. You won't see me on the screen. If it's out of my control, why do I have this 10-degree?
So a lot of people would argue, like mix engineers would argue, that this song's vocals are overcompressed to hell and back. But it's a very deliberate choice in this song because it's meant to sound uncomfortable and eerie, the whole thing.
Can you take it? Can you take it? Can you take it all away from me? Will I make it? Will I make it? Will my work be worth anything?
And now that's actually layered with a whisper layer. I don't think a lot of people know about that. I do not remember saying fucking degree in that whisper layer, but I guess I did. And then you have like... This is a terrible vocal take, but it's just that... Why did I do that? It's just stuff like that. There's another whisper layer. And then this is the actual verse layer where it's like kind of like I wanted the delivery to be very much close up and like kind of like this. So it's like another day to motivated, another day I lay in bed. They put me on some medication, think that it'll clear my head, and the therapist tells me like that, very much like almost nasally.
Another day to motivated, another day I lay in bed. They put me on some medication, think that it'll clear my head, and the therapist tells me it'll come to you in a matter of time. I'm holding on to that statement, but all I drink and do is wine.
So a few keen-eared listeners noticed that I said, but all I drink and do is wine, and realized that that was a reference to Kutna Horror by Food House. So props to you if you noticed that. Not many people did, but some people did. And if I had $1 for every time I wrote a lyric that was an actual thing that a therapist had said to me or had occurred in a therapy session, I'd have $2. Then you get into the chorus and the vocal delivery is a little different. It's like much louder and almost yelling at you.
So I look into the stars, into the sky that is mine. I'm shaking hands to run away so I can count my times.
There's so much delay on that, but that's like so that you can actually hear the delay properly in the mix. Like there's so much going on instrumentally that I had to boost the delay. Like listen to this. Like you wouldn't be able to hear that delay unless I had it turned that high. So then you have this layer, which I did hit. And then of course you have the vocal chops, which is pretty much the same thing but with some slightly different EQing, and that's like it. That's like literally it, just some different EQing.
Can you take it? Can you take it? Can you take it?
And that's just done by literally chopping up the vocal, like.
Take it. Will I make it? Make it.
And then obviously, like, the second chorus has the same vocals, and the second, everything except for verse has the same vocals. But the vocal chops are a bit different at the end. And that was basically just like a quick edit I did to make it different because it was a little repetitive if I left it the same, and I really like what I did with it. Like, Okay, now that brings us to the Kitty Dog verse. You know what? Rather than explaining it myself, why don't I let Kitty Dog herself explain it to you?
So usually when I do a little verse on a lyrics track, for example, I like to build off of the initial premise, but from my perspective and experiences and feelings. Obviously, I've never been to college. University. I've never done any of that shit, but I wanted to give a verse that's like kind of like supportive and showing that it's possible to, you know, break past the prison walls, limiting beliefs, and be able to like focus on what you're passionate about. The over a decade of passion, because that's a commonality we have. We've both spent over a decade like working on something that we're super passionate about, and like, I want to perform. I have all these dreams and shit. I'm excited for the future. You know, that's the whole point of my verse. This is an optimism type beat. And also I referenced one of my songs, which is I'm part of the problem, because that's like the perspective of being famous can fuck with your brain. There's wanting fame really badly, or wanting to be able to be a part of that sort of thing, and there's positives and negatives to it, but at the end of the day, believing in yourself and believing in someone that you care about and you love is super important. I really like when doing a verse, kind of doing a spin on the initial melody, or doing the way that I would flow on the beat, like myself not having anything to do with how the original artist flowed, and also referencing it melodically. So fuck it, can I take it? That was like that's like a reference to the initial melody and lyrics. I tried to make my verse and delivery really like crammed together, in contrast to the more free-flowing, I guess. It's a little bit more spaced out in the lyrics. I want to listen to the difference to see if I'm making up shit. Like with the lyrics, there's a lot of space in between words. It's like overstimulation. I guess it's supposed to represent a sort of stimulating environment. I don't know what I'm saying. I want it to make sense. It won't be edited. But yeah, that was a peak. Oh yeah, I also recorded like harmony vocals for the bridge. I think it's the bridge. The chorus. Yeah, I recorded harmony vocals for the chorus because I wanted the last chorus to have us both to tie it all together like a little bow. Peace.
All right, everyone say thank you, Kitty Dog, to my lovely wife who decided to be in this video ever so graciously. Yeah, so that was some interesting insight into how they contributed to the track. And that pretty much wraps us up with this video. If you're seeing this live on YouTube, like as it premieres or whatever, then the instrumental for Can You Take It is on SoundCloud now, and is also unlisted in the description of this video, okay? Thank you so much for watching, and again, thank you for Kitty Dog showing up in this video. I really appreciate it. I know we're literally married, but it's not a given that she would show up in this video. So yeah, I hope you all enjoyed this. Just a little peek into my songwriting process. And Perfectionist out either today or tomorrow. It's probably today at midnight. Stream it. That's a demand. All right, peace.